Hi guys, this is Mr. Brown, and we're going to do the candle lab right now. The candle lab is a lab that is to help you understand what an experiment is, what a controlled experiment is. And so what we're going to do is we're going to try to figure out how a candle actually works. I know you probably never thought about this. You just light the candle and make a wish and blow it out. Or you've seen candles in church, or maybe you're kind of a firebug like I was when a kid, and you learned how to, light matches and played with candles when you were a kid. If you do, you do. This lab is to help you understand the difference between the experimental part and the control part. If you remember, the experimental part is the part that has a variable, something the control part doesn't have. And so when you compare those two parts, any difference should be due to the variable. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a candle, lit, unlit. We're going to look at different wick types. We're going to look at if you remove certain parts of a candle and see how it works. And then we're going to do some chemical tests to see actually what a candle is producing. And maybe that'll help us to understand how a candle works. So you've looked at me enough. Let's look at some candles here. In the first part of the lab, and if you haven't looked at the lab, downloaded the lab, printed the lab, I think you ought to do that. It's on the Canvas page there. And it says in the first part, note the appearance, odor, and feel of an unlit candle, and you write it down. All right? So there is the candle typically. The candle is cylinder shaped. It's got two parts to it. It's got a wick, which you can see this candle has been well used, but you can see right there, that black part, that's a wick that's already been burned, and the rest of it is just made out of wax. We could use that candle, or in a minute we're going to use this candle, which is just a birthday candle. A little bit more of a wick exposed, so you can kind of see what's going on like this. But if you feel it, it's got kind of a waxy, oily feel to it. If you were to smell it, it has a little bit of a chemical smell. It's not really chemical, strong smelling. But if you've been around candles, you probably understand that what that is. Okay, so if you want to pause and write that down, that's what you should be doing right now. And if I look at this candle, it's completely made out of solid wax and a solid wick. There's no gases, there's no liquids in here at all. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this candle anyway to melt onto a glass square here. And I'm going to light a match, and I'm going to kind of melt the bottom of this a little bit, and then I'm going to stick it down like that. All right, now what I want you guys to do is I want you to observe what happens to the flame here while this is burning. And I'm going to hold this up a little bit. And again, like I said, we're going to burn this thing. And so now I'm going to light this on the wick. When I light the wick, notice that the flame is kind of a little yellow blob at the top like this. And when it finally gets down to the wax, the kind of shape of the flame changes a little bit. Instead of being a white blob, you can see that there is an area. Let's see if I can point this out. An area right around there. It seems like there's a round area right in there that's not as bright as this part that's up here. One of the problems is I'm breathing and blowing the candle around, and the room has some ventilation in it, so it does that. So anyway, that's what the candle looks like when it's running. And again, if you want to pause that, if you want to listen to what I said and write down some answers, that would be a good thing to do right now. All right, so I'm going to set this thing aside, and you can work on answers. Now, I want you to notice here that I changed the candle. This works a little bit better if you have a little bit bigger candle. So I lit another candle, and as I'm watching this candle, what I notice is as it burns down, the flame, the wick seems to stay about the same, but I'm getting a puddle of liquid wax starting to form in what's called the bowl of the candle, right there around it. If you've played with candles, you know this. And if we let this thing burn long enough, we're probably going to get some dribbles of liquid wax over the side. You can kind of see some of the old ones that are on there, like that. But again, there's our flame. and it's on the wick. It doesn't seem to scatter to any other parts of the candle. It seems to be only on the wick, but it certainly started to burn a little bit brighter when we got a little more liquid wax. All right, so and that's part 2. Okay, I can feel the heat coming from that candle. I can see light coming from that candle. So is this thing generating energy? Is the energy coming off of the candle, or is there energy going into it? Once the candle's burning, you can feel the heat coming from it. You can see the light coming from it. All right, we're going to see if this works. If it doesn't, we'll try a different thing. There we go. That's working a little better now. All right, so we're going to try it again here. What I have here, this candle's been burning pretty good for a while. I got a little bit larger flame, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to light a match. I'm going to gently blow out the candle, and I'm going to try to relight the candle. I'm going to put a match, a burning match, in the smoke just above it and see what happens. So I got a lit match. I gently blow it out, and if you notice, the candle relit without me actually touching the wick. Let's see if I can do it again. Oh, didn't work so good that time. But I actually didn't touch the wick with that match flame, and that tells me that there's something that the burning there that's not the wax candle, not the solid part, not the liquid part, and it's really not the wick either. We're going to try this again with the birthday candle and see if we can't get to work a little bit better. All right, so here in part 3, what it says to do is you need to have a lit candle. You're going to blow it out, and you're going to relight the smoke just above it. So we're going to see if we can't get this to work here. And if you look, did you guys see that? The match relit the candle without actually being in the flame. So we're going to try this again. We're going to blow it out. And if you look, it didn't work that time. Didn't get there fast enough. All right, so I'm going to blow this out, and I'm going to see if I'm going to put a match in the around the top where the smoke is at after I blow it out. I don't know if you guys saw that. Without me actually touching the wick, the flame was just in the smoke above it. It didn't work that time because I blew too hard on it, but it relights the candle. Okay, what that suggests to me is that it's not the wax, solid wax that's burning. It's not the liquid wax that's burning. It's actually the something else that's around the candle. All right, so now we're going to try this again. We've let this other candle burn for a while, and we'll see if we can't get this to work a little bit better again here. All right, so here's my candle. It has been burning pretty good here. I'm going to try to light it, or I'm going to blow it out. I'm going to put the flame from a match in the flame above it, or in the smoke above it. Now that worked pretty good that time. I don't know if you guys saw it, but we'll try it again. And there, I didn't touch the wick, all right? And again, what that's telling me is there is something around the wick that is actually burning. So it's not the wick that's really burning. The wick must be doing something else. It's not the solid or the liquid wax that's burning. It's something above it. So what that tells me is there's another phase present here. What phase is the one that's not a solid or a liquid? All right, that's actually what's burning. All right, if you need to pause, this is a good place to pause. All right, in part number 4, what we're going to do is we're going to take some candle wax, and we're going to put it onto a microscope slide. Now it says to use a micro spatula to scoop it out of there. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pour a little bit here onto the side. So there's some wax that's over there. And what I'm going to try to do, it says in number 4, use the micro spatula to transfer a small amount of liquid from the bowl of the candle to a microscope slide, and then try to light the wax and note the result. All right. So I've got some wax right there on the microscope slide. I'm going to light a match, and I'm going to try to light the wax. All right. Some of that wax is solid, some is still liquid, and I'm really not. The match is burning, but the wax is not. All right, so we probably need to pause. If you need to pause that now, you can do that. But when I tried to burn the wax by itself without a wick in it, it didn't burn well at all. All right, so really what I'm looking at here is this is a candle that's missing a wick. I tried to light the candle without a wick. Did the candle light? So what's the difference between a candle in number 2 and what I did in number 4? Like I said before, this is a candle, wax, without a wick, string. In number 2, the candle had both wick and wax, and we got a completely different result. Again, pause if you need to. All right, in number 5, what we're going to do is we're going to try something besides the wax. We're going to try a piece of toothpick. So here is a toothpick that I got. I broke off the end of it, and I'm going to kind of stick this away from the regular candle wick because I don't want to use the regular string wick. I want to see what happens if I light a wax wick. So in number 2, step number 2, I was trying to light a candle by lighting the string wick. This time I'm going to light the wooden wick, and let's see what happens if I try to light it. All right, doesn't seem to be lighting very well at all here, but oh, there we go. Wow, we got a little bit of a flame there, and when the toothpick burns down, so obviously the wick is flammable, but when it gets down to the wax, it doesn't seem to work very well at all. It's not a very good wick for some reason. It's burning a little bit. It might even go out if we wait long enough for this. So we're going to wait and see what happens. There's just a little tiny, I don't know if you guys can see that or not. There is just a little teeny tiny flame right there. And we're going to let that thing burn a little bit longer. And we'll see what happens. But for some reason, that wooden wick does not work nearly as well. And a lot of times when we do this lab, that flame goes out when it gets down to the wax. And it still might do that, I don't know. We'll let it burn down a little bit farther and see what happens. All right, but the flame is much smaller. All right, so we're gonna blow this out. If you need to pause, you do that and write down your observations. All right, here we are in part number 6. Part number 6 says you're supposed to take a piece of string. So there's a piece of string. What part of the candle do you think the string is supposed to represent? All right, so this piece of string sitting here is a candle without the wax. Without the wax. In number 2, we lit a candle that had wax. Now we're going to try to light a candle that doesn't have any wax. And so hopefully you guys can see the piece of string here. I'm going to light the end of this thing and we'll see what happens. All right, so I'm going to lift this up a little bit here. Hopefully you guys can see this okay. Whoops, that went out already. So I'm going to light this again, hopefully, and there it goes. And it burns a little bit, and then it goes out. There's burning a little bit. There's some of the string has a plastic in it, and so it doesn't burn very well. But you can see that that string did not burn nearly as well as the candle, and it certainly didn't burn the same way. Now, why would that happen? What's the difference between a piece of string and a candle? In number 2, you had a candle that had a string, the wick, and wax. Here is a candle, string, but no wax. So what's the difference between them? That's the variable. All right, and number 7 here. We'll get this lit here and we'll get it going a little bit first. All right, the most challenging part of the lab is step number 7. What I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to take this piece of aluminum foil that's got a little split in it like this, and I'm going to try to get that around the wick so that I can separate the wax on the bottom from the flame on top. And we might have to change to a birthday candle to see if that worked better. We're going to try here to see if we can make this work. So I'm going to put this around, and I'm going to try to make a little seal between that. And immediately, look what happens. It burned out. All right? The only thing that happened was I created a barrier with this foil between the liquid part of the wax and the string wick that was above, and it took a couple seconds and it went out. Okay, we're going to try this with a birthday candle, and we'll see if we can't make it, see if it works the same way. Stick this down first. All right, I'm going to light my candle. So now I'm going to put, it's burning down, it's getting down to the wick, and I'm going to put the barrier around it, the foil barrier, and pinch it closed. That didn't work so well. All right, so we're going to try this with the birthday candle. Light the birthday candle here, and it's burning down, it's getting down to the wax. I can see it's kind of melting the wax here. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a barrier on this with the foil, and I kind of pinch it closed like that, and immediately the flame starts to fade. And a matter of fact, look at that, it's so much it just went out. All right, so the foil is causing a barrier between the liquid part of the wax of the candle and the string. So altogether, we're finding out that the wick and the wax, and also the way they're arranged, has something to do with the way the candle burns. All right, so if you need to pause for a minute and write some stuff down, the word wick, by the way, means absorbent. All right, a wick is a part of this, it's a string that absorbs something from the bottom part of the candle. And so I remember as a kid, there used to be a Bounty paper towel commercial on, and they would use the word wick in that. And they would dip a paper towel into a puddle of water, and they said, watch the water as it wicks up the paper towel. It was absorbing up the paper towel. So that word wick, when it means absorbs in the paper towel, and the noun wick that's in the candle, actually that piece of string is also absorbing something, and it's going up. Pause if you need to write some stuff down. All right, we got our candle burning again here, and what we're going to do is now we're going to do a chemical test. We're going to test to see if water is coming from the candle. You don't see anything coming from the candle, but we're going to find out. Now, the way that you test for water is you use some paper. It's called cobalt test paper, cobalt chloride test paper. It comes in a little plastic tube, and when you open up the tube and you take out a little piece of paper, it looks like this. It's kind of a bluish color, and what happens if this cobalt chloride comes in contact with water, it's going to turn pink. All right, so how are we going to find out if there's a gas coming off of this candle? We're going to take a beaker, and this is a beaker, and the beaker is kind of cold, and what we're going to do is we're going to take the beaker and we're going to put it over the top of the candle, and we don't want to smother the candle. We want oxygen to get in there at the candle so it'll continue to burn, but you're going to find out that the candle is going to turn cloudy. And so in this condensation, we're going to try to test to see what that is, because we're getting a liquid that's going to build up. So here we go, and we put this over the top, and immediately I can kind of see that the sides of the beaker are getting kind of cloudy. and that's the condensation that builds up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that cobalt paper and I'm going to wipe it around in that liquid that's in there. And I didn't get much, but one of the things I can see, I don't know if this is going to show up very well or not, but the cobalt paper is turning pink. Okay, and we don't have the flame close. The cobalt's turning pink, and it's turning pink because what's the liquid in here? What does cobalt paper test for? That's what we tested it. And since it turned pink, it tells us that that liquid that's in there that's coming off of the candle is a very specific substance. All right, so if you need to go back and listen to that again, pause it, okay, and write down your answers. This would be a good time to pause. All right, in the last step of this, we're going to test this for carbon dioxide. So the last test that we did with the cobalt paper was to test for water. This time we're going to test to see if there's carbon dioxide coming from the candle. All right, and the stuff that we use for that is called lime water. Lime water is a saturated solution of a calcium-containing compound, and we're going to squirt some into this flask after we collect some of the gas. All right, so I have a stopper, a rubber stopper to put in the flask. So I'm going to put this flask over the top here, and I'm going to collect some gas. And I'm not trying to make it cloudy, although it is a little bit turning cloudy in there. And I don't want to smother the candle, so I'm just putting it over the top. And so gases, hot gases from the flame, if there are any being produced, are going up into the beaker. And so I'm going to hold this over here for about a minute or two, and I'm collecting gas there. And if I look at the flask, it's getting kind of cloudy, and that's we already saw was from that condensation before. It's the same kind of thing, but we're not testing for this. This time we're going to test for a gas, specifically carbon dioxide, because that's what lime water tests for. Now, when I get ready to test for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this lime water, this tube of this, I'm going to put a squirt of lime water into there, and then I'm going to put the stopper on, I'm going to shake it up. If the lime water turns cloudy, like much more opaque than it was to begin with, that means there's carbon dioxide being produced by the candle. All right, so that should be long enough. So let's see what happens here. I'm going to move my candle away a little bit. I'm going to put a squirt of lime water in here, and immediately it started clearing, it started to turn cloudy, and wow, that really turned cloudy. So that means that there's carbon dioxide being produced by the candle. All right, again, pause this if you need to. This is kind of the end of the video, what you're going to do. But let's talk about some of the questions here that you're going to have in here. Go back and listen to, if you look at the questions that are on the conclusion, it kind of tells you what are the two parts of a controlled experiment. I'm going to blow the candle out. If you listen to the beginning of the video, I told you what the two parts of the controlled experiment was. I told you what the difference is called between those two. All right, and I told you one of them gets this difference and one of them doesn't get the difference. That's what you're doing for number 3. In number 4 on the conclusion, it says in step number 1 you had an unlit candle, and number 2 you lit the candle. What's the difference between them? That difference is called the variable. In number 5, step number 2 was the lit candle, and we lit the string wax to light that one. In step number 3, if you remember, we were blowing out and we were lighting the gas that was above the wick. So in step number 2 and step number 3, what's the difference between what you did there? That's what the variable is. In number 5, and then 5B says, what happens if you wait too long? You actually saw me do that. If I waited too long, we couldn't relight the candle. So you should be able to explain why that happens now. In number 6 on the conclusion, step number 2, lighting the candle with the wick and a wax, and number 4, lighting just the wax, that's considered to be a controlled experiment. What's the one difference between the candle in step number 2 and the candle that we used in number 4? Number 7 is kind of similar. In number 7, it says, what's the difference between step number 2, the regular lit candle, and number 5, where we tried the wooden wick? So think about what kind of wick you had. That would be the variable. In number 8 on the conclusion, there's step number 2, lighting the regular candle, which you guys saw. In number 6, we were lighting a piece of string. Well, what's the difference? What's missing or what's different between a regular candle and a piece of string. Go back and think about what's a regular candle made out of. What two parts is a regular candle made out of? Whatever's missing from one of those parts, that would be the variable. All right. I hope that was enough to help you. Obviously, ask your teacher, ask me. If you have one of the other teachers, ask them. Ask Miss O'Connell if she's around. If you need help with any of this stuff, email us, let us know. All right. We're here to help you, but that should be enough to get the lab done. Thanks.